Princess Elena of the Alteran Empire stepped from her transport vessel with the grace befitting royalty, her crystalline skin shimmering under the harsh lights of the human military base. Her retinue of advisors flanked her, their expressions carefully neutral as they surveyed the primitive concrete structures and metal barricades that surrounded them. The diplomatic mission to Earth had been her father's idea, a necessary evil to secure the mining rights to the rare minerals found only in human space. The Alterans possessed superior technology, faster ships and energy weapons that could level cities. Yet somehow these peculiar bipeds had managed to claim territory that contained resources essential to their empire's continued expansion. Elena's attention was immediately drawn to a human soldier standing guard near the landing platform. He wore the same drab uniform as the others, carried the same crude projectile weapon, and maintained the same rigid posture. Nothing about him suggested importance or rank beyond that of a common infantryman. She dismissed him with barely a glance, focusing instead on the approaching delegation of human officials. "Your Highness," the lead human diplomat said, offering what she assumed was their species' version of a bow. "Welcome to Outpost Meridian. I am Ambassador Reed, and I will be facilitating today's negotiations." Elena nodded regally, her translator, device converting her melodic Alteran speech into the harsh consonants of human language. "I trust the preliminary agreements have been reviewed. My time here is limited." As the diplomatic party moved toward the conference facility, Elena noticed the same soldier from earlier had fallen into step beside her personal guard. She found this presumptuous and mildly irritating. Did humans truly believe their primitive security measures were necessary when she traveled with her own protection detail? The negotiations began predictably. The humans wanted favorable trade terms, technology transfers, and mutual defense pacts. The Alterans wanted unrestricted access to mineral rights and acknowledgement of their superior position in any alliance. Elena found herself growing increasingly impatient with the slow pace of human decision-making and their tendency to request clarification on points she considered obvious. During a recess, she stepped onto a balcony overlooking the base's training grounds. The same soldier stood at attention nearby, and she finally decided to address what she perceived as in breach of protocol. "Why do you continue to shadow my movements?" she asked, turning to face him directly. "Your crude weapons pose no threat to beings who would harm me, and your presence is unnecessary." The soldier turned to meet her gaze, and Elena was surprised by the intelligence she saw in his brown eyes. "Ma'am, I'm following standard protective protocols. Nothing more." His voice carried an unusual authority for someone of such apparent low rank. Elena studied his face more carefully, noting the weathered features and the small scars that spoke of actual combat experience rather than ceremonial duty. "You have seen battle," she observed, her tone less dismissive than before. "Several tours, ma'am, against pirates mostly, but some conflicts with other species as well." Elena felt a flicker of curiosity. The humans were known to be formidable, fighters despite their technological disadvantages, but she had never spoken directly with one of their warriors. "And how do you, with your primitive weapons, expect to stand against enemies with energy shields and plasma cannons?" The soldier's expression remained neutral, but she caught a hint of something that might have been amusement. "We adapt, ma'am. Humans are good at finding solutions to problems that seem impossible." Before Elena could respond, Ambassador Reed approached with an apologetic expression. "Your Highness, there has been a development regarding the marriage clause in the treaty." Elena's attention snapped back to the diplomat. "What development?" "The representative your father designated for the ceremonial union has arrived," Reed continued. "However, there seems to be some confusion about his identity." A cold realization began to form in Elena's mind. She looked at the soldier standing beside her, noting for the first time the subtle differences in his uniform, the additional insignia she had dismissed as decorative, the quality of the fabric that was actually superior to the other soldiers she had observed. "What is your name?" she asked quietly. "Colonel Marcus Wade, ma'am. Special Operations Command." Elena felt her crystalline skin flush with embarrassment and a growing sense of respect she had not anticipated. "You are the marriage representative." "Yes, ma'am. I was briefed that you might not recognize me immediately given the differences in our military protocols. The pieces fell into place with startling clarity. Her father had spoken of the human representative as a distinguished warrior, someone who had earned his position through merit rather than birth. She had assumed this meant a decorated general or admiral, not understanding that human military culture often elevated their most capable fighters to leadership roles regardless of their origins. Elena looked at Marcus with new eyes, seeing not a common soldier but a man who had likely fought his way through countless battles, earned the respect of his peers, and been chosen to represent his entire species in a diplomatic marriage that would bind two civilizations together. "I owe you an apology, Colonel Wade," she said, her voice carrying a formal weight that had been absent in their previous exchange. "I failed to recognize your true position." Marcus inclined his head slightly. "No offense taken, Your Highness. Different cultures, different ways of showing rank." Elena found herself genuinely intrigued by this human who had stood patiently beside her, while she dismissed him as insignificant. "Tell me about these battles you have fought. How does a human warrior think?" "We think about survival, ma'am. About protecting the people who depend on us. About finding ways to win when everything says we should lose. And do you win?" Marcus met her gaze steadily. "We're still here." Elena felt something shift in her understanding, not just of Marcus but of humanity itself. These beings did not conquer through superior technology or overwhelming force. They endured, adapted, and overcame through sheer determination and an apparently inexhaustible capacity for finding solutions to impossible problems. As the negotiations resumed, Elena found herself watching Marcus with growing fascination. Here was a man who had likely faced death countless times, who had earned his position through courage and competence, and who carried himself with a quiet confidence that needed no displays of power or status. The marriage treaty, once a political necessity, began to seem like something else entirely. Perhaps her father had been more clever than she had realized in selecting this particular human as her diplomatic spouse. Elena smiled, an expression that Marcus returned with surprising warmth, and she realized that her assessment of both the man and his species had been dangerously incomplete.